Hey everybody, so my name is LaPrecious and welcome to my channel. Let's talk with LaPrecious. So I know that it's been a very long time since I have been on my YouTube channel, but I decided to do celebrity psychic mediums. I know I was supposed to do a whole lot of them last year, and due to me working and just being busy, I just wasn't able to do it. So today I'm going to be doing Dino from H-Town. Now, I'm not sure about the age groups who watch my channel or anything, but Dino was the lead vocalist in the 90s group known as H-Town. They were known for the popular song Knockin' the Boots, as well as A Thin Line Between Love and Hate for the Martin Lawrence movie that was named the same thing back in the late 90s. The reason why I chose to do Dino, not only because he was fine as hell, but I chose to do him because Dino, to me, his spirit just like spoke out to me because I was going through like my TikTok page and everything, and I saw like a fan page of his on TikTok, and they had like all of his pictures and everything, and it looked like Dino had like a really sweet soul and a sweet spirit. But let me tell y'all, like when it came to H Town, the only song I've ever heard on an R&B station or on a black radio station was "Knockin' the Boots." That's like the only song they'll play is "Knockin' the Boots." But when I went through like the catalog of H Town, they had a lot of good music. I mean, a lot of good music. Natural Woman and Take It Slow, I want to say, are more of my favorites than Knocking the Boots because it was more sensual and it had more of like a feel good groove to it. And it made you feel like very womanly and feminine. And I also, now growing up, I always did research on like different artists and found out like different information about different celebrities and things of that nature. And I always knew about Dino because I remember, doing research on H Town and who they were, where they were from. They're from Houston, Texas, and that's why they were known as H Town. And Dino, sadly, was killed in a car accident 20 years ago on January 28th, 2003. And a lot of people have said there's not a lot of information about Dino online. That a lot of people don't know about like his upbringing, his childhood, like who he was as a person. But before I get into this mediumship where I call in Dino's spirit, I'm gonna say he comes off as a man that was very, strong and robust, but he had a very soft, sweet, masculine side. Like he knew he was a man. Like that song say, "Natural Woman." Like he was a natural man. And he made it proudly known too. But the thing that we do know about Dino is that he did have a daughter named Kaja Rose, and she's only known. I want to say she's known for being his daughter, of course, but she's also known for being Josh Rogan. I believe that's his name. The infamous controversial commentator who was known for saying the N word and also doesn't see anything wrong with it. So I'm also going to tap into that to see what Dino thinks about his daughter being adopted and raised by someone of this nature. And the last thing that we do know is that when Dino died in a car accident back in 2003, he died with his fiance, who was pregnant at the time, and her name was Taisha. And sadly, but also it's also sweet as well that in Houston, Texas, they were buried together. So when you do visit Dino's grave, Taisha is buried right next to him. So I thought that was very sweet and fitting that since they were together in life, they're together in death. But one thing I also want to pick up about Dino was that he was a very spiritual man as well. I mean, you heard the church come out of his voice. And when I say church, I'm talking about 90s Baptist brimstone, like fire and brimstone type of preacher, like kind of voice. Because even in the song Natural Woman, where he says, God said, and, let every man have a woman. And yes, so I heard like, church and soul and spirituality. And he highly talked about God because I did see an article about him where they asked him like what was his favorite food to eat. He said he liked to eat healthy foods like apples, oranges, and pears and whatnot. And then they asked him like what kind of woman was he looking for, like a God-fearing woman, no matter her nationality, race, or background, just as long as that's what God has for me. And then he also said, one of his goals was for him to go to heaven, was for him to make it to heaven. So, he had, talks about God and heaven and whatnot, and one of the things that's a little scary, and a lot of people have talked about, life and death lies in the power of the tongue and how we can manifest things by what we say. They actually did a music video back in the 90s where Dino was in a car accident and he ended up in a hospital in the music video. And in life, he actually died and was killed in a car accident. And then a lot of people have said, and, it's also been noted that Dino had a lot of premonitions about death and dying. And then he sung like this amazing, like heartfelt song called The Day I Die. And I mean, that song, I mean, it is so strong and spiritual and so sad because Dino literally sung himself into heaven with that song. He talked about him dying and how he wants his mom and his brother and GI, the other guy in H Town, to be by his side and to not worry because he's gonna go and fly into the bosom of God and be hugged. And that's actually, what they preach about, how when we die and get welcomed into heaven, God will give us, a hug and say, well done, my good and faithful servant, and you'll be welcome into heaven. So it's good to know that Dino had God on his mind and that he was, and that was where he wanted to go. But I'm going to tap into why death was so prominent at that time. And, there's a lot of history behind it, but I'm going to go ahead and wake up his spirit. So, okay. So Dino's spirit, I want to say, is very comforting and is very sweet. And his energy is just so like forceful. Okay, you know how like when you approach a fine looking man or a nice looking man and they have on that robust smelling cologne, like they just gonna come out sexy when they get out the shower. And when they're ready to like approach you or when they're ready to like take you on a date or just hug you and caress you, like that's the type of feeling that Dino has. He has like that real sensual sexual touch. But like I said, he is a very masculine man, so there's nothing that needs to be questioned about his masculinity. Okay, Dino, so I'm sure a lot of fans would like to know, first off, what kind of childhood did you guys have? And like, how did music, play a part in, your life? And, where did you get this soulfulness from? And where did you get your voice from? Like, how did that come about? Okay, so what I'm picking up, he says that they had a very good childhood. They were very laid back. He and his brother Shazam, they always, kind of kicked back when they were kids and they had fun, rambunctious, just like any other type of kids. And they were very close knit, very tight. And what I'm picking up is that their grandmother had a lot of influence on them, that their grandmother really instilled the love of God in them. And the reason why it took his soul so much or why he took so much to God because he felt like it was such an amazing, beautiful thing how a God could be in the sky that's so big that we couldn't see, couldn't touch, could have this beautiful effect on us and could have this beautiful, intense, nature and so serene and so pleasant and so bliss. And this is like the God or the person that he could come to, for comfort and guidance and help, even though he couldn't be seen and even though he couldn't be touched, but his presence was always, ever felt. Like that's what he's saying. He always felt his presence around him. And that's what really kept him grounded and what really kept him connected to his spiritual side was just the way that God flowed and God's fluidity of being so, transparent, how he could be so transparent and so open with God, and how God was so transparent and so open with him through his gift because his gift of singing, and this is not me talking, I'm hearing his voice talk to me as I'm saying this. Like God was in his voice because his voice was so pristine and so like heartfelt and so like godly in a sense. And he just knew that he was, gifted and favored, highly favored in God with the type of voice that he had that was really pristine and, one of a kind. Okay, so another question that I'm going to ask is okay, so Dino, when it comes to you and your brother Shazam, why is it that y'all lied about y'all's ages? Okay, so he said the reason why the record label made them lie about their ages is because he was pretty much saying that it was something cute that they could do, and it was something that was really gonna make them like more sexy and more like enticing, saying like, "Ooh, we got twins, we got the chocolate dark, GI guy here, then we got like the sexy twins, where one appears to be like the older brother, and the other one appears to be like the younger brother, but they're cute and they're twins and they're fine and they're sexy, so it gives off a more sensual sexual appeal, like, ooh, which one can I pick, which one can I have, and which one can I get close to, who's a better one in bed. So it was all about like the physical attraction and like the sexual excitement of having two twins in a group that talked about sex and really made you want to feel like, that really want to make you feel feminine, and really wanted to make you feel like exciting and enticed and whatnot. Okay, Dino, what is the other question I wanna ask? Okay, Dino, so explain to the people like what kind of person were you? Like what type of person were you? What type of person did you, become in like your adolescence and as a teenager, and things of that nature? Okay, so what I'm picking up was that when he was a kid, he was very rambunctious and cute and cuddly, but he was always sweet and soft. And it's like his older brother kind of picked on him a little bit about that, saying, why are you so soft, man? You need to toughen up. You need to man up. And Dino is saying, like, I understand that, like, yeah, I'm a man and everything, but let's be nice to the ladies. Let's be sweet to the ladies. And not just with women in general. Like, he had like the spirit where he could like give you the shirt off his back, or like if he saw where you were crying, he would give you a hug, or if he saw where you were like a pretty lady, he would give you a flower, and he would give you like sweet gestures or like a kiss on the hand and whatnot. So he was always like Prince Charming, or like the romancer of the crowd and whatnot. That's just pretty much who he was. Now let's get to him as a teen. So I know you guys know him for being like a teenager in H Town, because when Knocking the Boots came out, he was like 17, 18 years old. So I'm gonna ask him like, so how that was, because I'm sure to those of you who know like the background story of H Town. So he was like with Luke Records, who was real popular in Miami. He was the one that signed them first. And I should tap into that. Like, what did he think of Luke? Because I was watching like a documentary that pretty much said that he pretty much thought of them as like poor kids that needed help, because Luke pretty much like took them in, saw that they have a gift, he bought them clothes, bought them a house, and he pretty much set them up. But Luke did do him dirty, because Luke did to H Town what Pebbles had did to TLC by blowing them up, giving them all this fame and giving them all this exposure, but they really didn't have the money to show for it. Like H Town was pretty much getting allowances like $110 or like $120 a week. And I remember like in the TLC biopic, they stated they was getting the same amount of money too. And I really want to tap into like Dino's spiritual side to see if he, had tapped into this already, or what was he saying, what was he thinking. Okay, Dino, so tell us like how you were as a teen breaking out in H Town when Knocking the Boots came out, and when you signed to like Luke Records, and how that whole experience was. Okay, so he's pretty much saying like, so when he and his brother Shazam and Gi first got signed to like Luke Records and whatnot, and they were given the house and the clothes and the look, and they were put on the spot. It was just really fun, and it was, they was just rambunctious kids. It's like they was famous. You're like, ooh, we're famous. Everybody's looking at us. Everybody knows our song. And he says like Knocking the Boots was like a fan favorite. Like everywhere they would go, people would sing it to him. They would recognize him on the street. They would see him and his brother out, and the girls would like chase him down and whatnot. So it was more of like overnight fame that it felt. But he's also saying that he did see some like shady things go on when things would be going on as far as like the record label and with Luke. But he never like questioned it because that was like his spot. That was his time to like really come up and to really be famous. And he didn't want to like ruin the moment or like mess anything up before things were gonna happen or before things were really gonna like really pop off for H Town in the group. But Dino is saying that he did see some like dark, shady things like earlier on. Let's get into like some really deep things because as he's saying this, I'm picking up a lot of dark energy around Luke in the record label. So I'm gonna ask him, so Dino, so what type of energy was seen in Luke records and the shady things that you saw? He's saying that he was cheap because he felt like Luke didn't really want to like spend a whole bunch of money on them. Because what I'm picking up is that the contracts, he's picking up like the contracts were very low budget, like low budget cutting, like the way they were presented. He said they were presented as, like these, rambunctious kids from the hood, we're from Houston, we're busting out scenes, we're those cool kids, the cool cats that's singing about love and sex and knocking women's panties off and stuff. But he's saying that he saw like a very sinister side of Luke when he was, in the business with him and everything. And I'm picking up that he was always told like not to say much. Like when contracts were being handed out and, the fine print wasn't read or there wasn't any like inclinations made or like any that there wasn't anything being fought on their behalf. It's like they were made to just accept or to just take deals without them really questioning things and without them really like seeing things for what they really were. And it's like if they saw things for what they really were, they were made to like shut up about it or, they would be told like, tough talks, but streets talk as well. They were kind of like threatened in a way. It's like they were told, things like little riddles, like you could be talking now, but you're gonna be walking the streets and be poor and be broke again. So I'm hearing that there was some threats like thrown around about them speaking up and saying things, and there were things that were, discussed, amongst themselves as far as like the people at the record label that weren't discussed with Dino and H Town as far as like they were concerned. So it's like in the beginning of their career, there were some rumblings and whatnot, but they kept their cool and they kept quiet about it because they didn't want to miss out on like the deal. They didn't want to cut themselves before they actually got a chance to grow and become bigger than what they were. So you guys know that when they got really fed up with things, they went on a popular TV show called Video Soul that I believe was on BET, and they all dressed up in like jail attire with shackles and chains connected to each other because they said that that's how they felt. They felt like they were being locked and chained down, and that they were, being, disrespected and not heard because Dino and Shazam were very outspoken. These were very strong, like outspoken political men. And they knew their rights. They knew right from wrong, but they knew when they were being done wrong and when they was being done dirty. And they just knew that they needed to speak out and say something and speak up because if they didn't speak out and say anything, then nothing was going to happen. That they were going to keep getting crumbles, keep getting, cookie crumbles under the table, keep getting bad deals. And they were going to be presented as these rich, luxurious, men of H Town, but they were really, poor and broke or dirt poor because their record label wasn't paying them anything. So once they pretty much did that, they took a stance. I am hearing Dino say that they were scared about it because they were in fear and scared of being retaliated against and not being heard and even being blackballed because it's like they really wanted a chance to spread their wings and to like break out of the teenage, arena that they were in. Because y'all know that when it came to Dino, like he had like that cute kid, and I don't know if men like this even exist. Like this is what I love and remember about the 90s is that y'all remember how you would have like the ugly ducklings, and Dino wasn't ugly, he was just a cute, teenager that had the little flat top and everything like that. But y'all know how when y'all had like them ugly ducklings or like the people who were like the geeks, so they had bad acne and glasses and they was, real big, or they had like the crazy hair. Then they kind of went through like their Prince Charming or their princess or their blossom area, or like they used to say, kind of grew into their looks. Like Dino, he grew all the way up almost like overnight. And I'm sure that the stylists that they had back then, and this is what I love about, the 90s, because you really got to see growth with groups. It's like they could start off as basic or as, people who, were just starting out and they were good. But it's like when they got grown or when they got mature, it's like they really brought that out of them. And that's what happened with H Town. It's like they went from being these cute, fine, sexy, teenagers singing about knocking the boots and giving that good love till they came out with Natural Woman when they finally like grew up and everything on like the ladies edition album, because that's when they got grown and sexy. You started seeing like the six packs, the oil down bodies, the leather outfits, and then Dino, he had like the little, the chisel little eyebrows, and he had a little eye piercing, and he started getting like tattoos and the real body and the texturizer to make it look like he had good hair and everything. He had that like Cisco, that genuine look, when they made him, look like that. And, this is really where they started seeing, growth and production. So Dino is saying that they were kind of scared of, being retaliated against and being blackballed, but they just knew that they had to take a chance and they had to take a stance. And things did work out because they eventually got released from Loop Records and they started their own record label, I believe. And then they really started to, no, it wasn't their own record label. They signed to a new record label. I can't really remember what that record label was, but that's when things really started turning around for them. And also, you had subject matter that started to change. Now, I do have some questions popping up on here. I got a lot of them because the types of questions that I have for Dino right now with his spirit is, when we saw like them grow up and get grown and sexy, it's like they really evolved and grew up. But you had like singles called Emotions and Thin Line Between Love and Hate that was on the popular soundtrack of the movie Thin Line Between the Love and Hate with Lynn Winfield and Martin Lawrence. And I was actually and at the 90s and stuff, when black movies came out, the soundtracks was like albums. I mean, they had people like Mary J. Blige, TLC, H Town. I mean, getting the soundtrack of a black movie in the 90s was almost like running to the CD store, getting a regular album from your favorite rapper. That is what I miss and love so much about CDs and just 90s and early 2000s culture, because I remember when you had to line up at the CD stores and wait until they opened on the day of and be like the first person in line to get the soundtrack or the first person in line to get the album and everything. And they came out in that era. And so around this time, things were changing. They started changing up their music. And they expressed to their new record label that they kind of wanted to keep things, sexual, but they wanted to move on to other topics where instead of them just knocking a woman's clothes off and knocking the bed down and snatching her legs open and everything, they wanted to talk about love and romance and things of that nature and talk about being sweet and gentle with a woman and not so rough and rugged with the woman and whatnot. So let's kind of dive into that. But I also want to tap into Dino's like personality. So Dino, tell us what your hobbies and your likes were like as a child, or like even as like even as like a grown man and whatnot. Because a lot of people say they don't really know too much about Dino because there's not a lot about his personal life in magazines. So, okay, Dino, so what types of hobbies and likes did you like? I'm hearing that Dino was really into fashion. He really liked clothing because you could tell, like, with his style and with his look, and even with the type of clothes that he wore, he was like an out there guy. He was like the kind of person who wanted to try something new, and he wanted to try something, different, and he wanted to try something that was just the odd one out. And that's the thing about Dino that he says, like, with his personality, and I'm also hearing like this was a fight and a struggle with him because as a black man, in R&B, you're told to be, sexual and sensual, sing about love, hurt, and pain, because pain and sex is what really sold back then, and that's what the record labels really wanted him to sing about. But he wanted to be something different, just like who he was, because I'm hearing Dino say like his hobbies was to be like a fashion designer, where he wanted to wear like flat tops and petticoats and like silk and velvet attire, and with like a Kojak, shave as far as like his mustache and his beard, which is what he did. And I'm also hearing he wanted to wear like go-go glasses and things like that. But I'm also picking up like more so on the creative side, like with his music. I am hearing that he did want to dive into gospel because his love of Christ really started tapping in around that emotions era of H Town, because he really wanted to like dive into like the love of Christ and the love of Jesus, but he was just told not to because that's not sexy. Don't nobody want to hear about God and Jesus while, opening your legs and eating a woman's, punani, and, talking to her, through her ears and licking her, lips and stuff. Like nobody wants to talk about God in moments or in sensual moments like that. So that's what I'm picking up. That his spirituality really started tapping in when he got around like the Emotions Ladies Edition album. But he had to fight that because the record label and even within the group, it's like they wanted to maintain that sexiness. And I'm picking up that his calling had came for him to be a minister in song, like a minister in music, because y'all know when Dino sung and opened up his mouth, he not only could sing, but he could sing. Like they used to say in church, like that boy can sing. Like he could sing you down the pews, sing you up the altar, sing you into the heavenly choir, and bring you down to earth. Like he could sing you to church. Like that man had a strong conviction in his voice when it came to Christ. And I'm hearing Dino say that that's when his calling really tapped in for him to give his life to the Lord and really be about the Lord. Because I remember there's a clip, and I'm going to put it on the thumbnail of this video when the time comes for me to put it up, where he talks about loving God and loving Christ, because it says that after his hobbies of loving Christ and loving the Lord and whatnot, I mean, when it talks about his favorite foods and when it talks about the kind of woman he wants, he talks about the woman that he wants, a woman that loves God, enjoys God, and it doesn't matter her nationality, her race, or anything like that. And I'm also hearing like that's what made him different. And I'm hearing he did get a lot of side eyes from people in the black community, because I keep hearing community, but also in the industry. He was told like you're a brother, like what you doing with a white ass girl, or what you doing with a white ass baby. You supposed to be like the brothers. You supposed to be for the black queens and the blackness and stuff. And I'm hearing that it was a nice touch for him to be, in touch with his like black queens or black women. And he actually thought all women were beautiful, but it's just the white women appear to him most, because if y'all know Dino, he stayed with a white woman because his first baby mama was a white woman, and he had his daughter Kasia by a white woman. And the woman he died with, and a lot of people always thought that the woman he died with, who was pregnant by him in the car accident, was a black woman, but she was white as well. So Dino, he did like the ladies, of different colors or whatnot, but white women just appealed to him more because he was drawn more to a white woman's spirit, because he felt like it was more pristine and exciting. Because I'm hearing like gyration, excitement, and whatnot, but they appealed like close to his heart, and they understood him better, because I'm picking up Dino felt like black women just could not take him that much. He felt like he was too soft or too sweet for them, where they kind of thought he was gay. And I hate to say it, but when you look at Dino, and I mean, come on, especially, back then in the 90s, you could look good or look like a Spanish poppy, the way he did with his like wavy hair and the light skin and the tattoos and the oil chest and everything. But it's like if you look too juicy and too good, you were kind of seeing like, oh, he must be gay, or he must be a little fruity or bisexual. And he did get that from time to time from black women, and it was just it. And I'm hearing he was just tired of arguing, tired of fighting, and dealing with the frustration of, you know, not being too black, or being too black when it came to like his voice and the way he sung and his conviction, and then coming off as too churchy or too soulful, because I'm hearing that like the black women just didn't like that about him, but it's like the white women could take him, and it's like, and they would take him, and he just felt like that was his fit, that was where his soul relied at. So yeah, I'm picking up that's how he really felt about women. Let's pick up, let's ask another question about his daughter. So his daughter is named Kasia. She has a Instagram page called Kasia Rose, and she has different platforms, and she's also sung. Now I have not heard any of her music, and I have not did any research or anything like that as far as like how she could sing and whatnot. I have seen pictures of her and Shazam, who is her uncle, because that was Dino's biological brother. Even though they were twins, they were blood brothers and whatnot. And when it comes to Caja Rose, she's his sweetheart. I'm hearing him saying this. She's his love bug, his sweetheart. She's like kind of cute, kind of cuddly and everything. And she's always had this sweetness about her, but she's very stern and pristine. But she likes what she likes, and she's very headstrong and very dominant. And she's well equipped with nature and with the future and with her fortitude and whatnot. So that's something that I am, really picking up, from him as far as like how he thinks about his daughter Kasia. So now I'm gonna talk about Josh Rogan as far as like him raising her, because you guys know that Josh Rogan, I believe that's his name, he was in the news a while back about saying the N word and having nothing wrong with it. And little do people know, if they are familiar with Dino and H Town, they know that Dino has a daughter named Kasia Rose, who happens to be the adopted daughter of Josh Rogan. And I want to ask Dino this, how does he feel about her being raised by a man like this, and how she was able to reverence her father and really deal with all this? Like, I'm just gonna tap into. So Dino, how do you feel about your daughter Kasia Rose being raised by a man like Josh Rogan? Okay, so I'm hearing him say that he's a good guy, but he's also very pessimistic. He's very headstrong, and he's good natured and kind spirited. This is what Dino is saying, but he doesn't like his fortitude, like the way he carries himself. Like, he doesn't like how forthcoming or how forthright he is. Now y'all know Dino was a very outspoken man. He didn't take no for an answer. He fought his way through. He stood his ground, and he stood up for himself, and he was all about principles. But he feels as though, because I'm picking up, he feels as though Josh Rogan goes about stuff the wrong way, because it's like, you're talking harsh to my daughter. So Dino is aware that Josh Rogan has been very harsh and been talking really harshly with his daughter, and very stern. And that's pretty much kind of where she gets some of her sternness from, a little bit. But she kind of gets, I'm hearing him say that she kind of gets a lot of that, a lot of that from me, because my spirit, I was the one that was sweet, that was soft and really gentle, but also stern, and had that strong like fortitude. Like, you're not gonna take me for granted, or you're not gonna take advantage of me. You're gonna love me in my all, and love me in my everything. And that's pretty much the same spirit that she has. So she did pick that up from Dino, but Dino is saying that he does think that Josh Rogan is very harsh, and that he's not like a fan of his per se, because I am hearing that he's really, really racist, and very racist, and he's not understanding like what Kaja, like as far as his daughter, like how could she be so close to a man like that? Like, yes, he is married to like her mom and everything, but it's like he doesn't. This is Dino saying he just doesn't understand how like Kaja could be so close to like a man like this when he's bluntly racist. Like, he does not like black people, and he openly says the N word, just to get a kick out of, for the fun of it and stuff, for like a goofball and everything. So it's one of those things that Dino's spirit has, teeter-tottered around and whatnot. He still loves Caja Rose as his daughter, but he's just not like too keen on like her mom just marrying somebody like that or being with somebody like that. Okay, so another thing that I'm gonna go into is like his solo music career. No, one thing I want to talk about is the Brown Simpson woman. So if y'all know anything about like Brown Simpson and her play in this whole thing, he actually dedicated the album, and I believe this was the album that has Ladies Session that has the song Emotions on it. He dedicated this album to her. And you guys, if you guys don't know who Brown Simpson is, Brown Simpson was the wife of OJ Simpson that he allegedly, and I'm going to say this again, allegedly murdered and killed, which was why, the whole OJ Simpson case, OJ did it. If it don't fit, then you must have quit, because he had the famous um lawyer. What was that lawyer's name? Okay, I cannot remember this lawyer's name for nothing, but it'll come up to me eventually, probably. So, that's where all of that came from. So, I'm going to ask Dino, why did he dedicate this album to Brown Simpson? Okay, so what I'm picking up is that he thought she was beautiful. He thought she was very, like, cunning and very enchanting and just amazing. And, he felt like she deserved her flowers, because she was allegedly, and I'm saying allegedly because I don't want nobody saying, even though this is Dino's spirit, because he believes that since she was murdered by a man that did not value her, and it was a pretty big case at the time, he felt as though she should be honored and she should be given her flowers and her cloak of love because she was a natural woman. She was a spiritual woman because Dino could pick up that she was a spiritual woman. She was enticing, she was amazing, but she had like a really light spirit about herself and everything that he could see and that he saw. So that's why he dedicated the album to her because he felt like she deserved that because of what he allegedly did to her. Okay, so now let's talk about the car accident that happened in the music video. So, H Town, they did a music video. This was like in the mid career of H Town when they were like really changing and maturing and growing. And there was a music video where Dino was in a car accident in the music video. And you guys know that Dino passed away in a car accident with his pregnant fiance. And a lot of people have been saying, life and death lies in the power of the tongue. Oh, they manifested his death, and whose idea was it to put Dino in the car and make that scene about him? And why did this come about? So I'm going to go ahead and ask Dino, like, whose idea was it, and why do they want it, and why do they want this to happen to him in the music video? So, Dino, explain to us about the car accident scene in the music video. Like, why did it happen, and who thought of it? Whose idea was it? Okay, so Dino is pretty much saying that when he got the call about, like, when he got the call about them doing this scene in the music video, it it crept up in his spirit that something just wasn't right about this because he was saying like, I don't want to mimic myself as dying, because life and death lies in the power of the tongue, and you just don't play with death because it's not something that you could come back with. You just can't really play with, serious scenes like that because, this is nothing to play with. Like you wouldn't play about a car accident, in person. So why do it in the music video? What I'm picking up is that the record label had this idea because you guys know that Tupac had the song called "I Ain't Mad at You," And, in the scene, he talked about him being in heaven with all the greats and how, he was telling his friend how he ain't mad at you about the way he lived and stuff. And you guys noted in that music video that, he and his friend, they was laughing, hanging out and whatnot. And Tupac was shot and killed in the music video and he died. And, he was, rapping in heaven, with all the angels and stuff and talking about him reminiscing on his life and everything. And it seems like the people at the record label, they kind of want to bring this out to the forefront. And they wanted it to be something that was more like hood or like gully, like gut wrenching. It was like something to pull on the heartstrings. Because y'all know back in the 90s, like a lot of the videos were very dramatic, like singing in the rain or being somewhere in Chinatown, walking through a herd full of people, and your girl just broke up with you, and you walking through life trying to figure out how you gonna move on. And, that was something that they wanted to bring to the video. They wanted it to be something different, something intriguing, and something that make people cling like, oh no, Dino died. Like, what's gonna happen? Because y'all know that they made these scenes and stuff so good that, it looked real. And that was something that they wanted to do with H-Town. And so they pretty much, thought about just taking that and making the video more exciting because it was something that could be, memorable. And Dino just didn't. So what I'm hearing Dino say is he was saying like it felt right at the time to do it because he wanted to try something new for the record label and whatnot. But and I'm picking up that his spirit just saying, to keep going, that you'll get through it and whatnot. But he knew that in the back of his mind, like something is just really off and it's just not right about this scene and everything. I just don't feel like myself. And I'm picking up that he had like an out of body experience with this, and it was kind of eerie, but he was able to brush past it and dust it off and just get through the whole video because the video was like a movie. Like that was the whole take on it, was to make the video like a movie. But you guys know, unfortunately, that, a lot of people have said that they manifested Dino's death and that there was possibly, some Illuminati affiliations or some, demonic forces behind it, or that due to Dino and Shazam being so outspoken that they was trying to like set him up for death or kind of, mimic that and whatnot. And, what, let me actually tap into that. So let me tap into, I know a lot of times people do mediumships, they tap into like people's ancestors and, um, not with the first spirit, but let me tap into Dino's ancestors. So, ancestors of Dino Conner, this music video and what happened. So tell me what happened. Like, was there any like premonitions that occurred, or was there any like conspiracies, or like who was behind all this stuff? Like, who was really behind like a lot of this stuff? Okay, so what I'm picking up from Dino Connor's ancestors is that people at the record label, they did kind of want to kill Dino off. And the reason why they wanted to do it is because they felt like he knew too much. He said too much. He was too outspoken, and he saw a lot of ins and outs in the industry because he did see a lot of black magic. He did see like witchcraft being practiced in the industry. And I'm seeing where people, being laid out, spoken over, curses being thrown at them, spell books, and people being bound. And I'm hearing like cages and just a lot of bondage and blockages and breakages and stuff. It's like a lot of carriers of like sickness and disease, of like pessimism and just different things that were going on. It was like living hell on earth pretty much as far as the industry is concerned. And it's like at the record labels, they knew that this was happening. And it's like they were kind of saying in their own way, like, we're going to kill Dino off in this video. We're going to try to like get rid of him. He's going to be like the sacrificial lamb and whatnot in this video. And they were kind of hinting at that, they kind of wanted Dino to go away because if you guys like follow the history of H Town when they were changing and wanted to do more sensual stuff. The record label just wasn't fully behind that album because it wasn't as sexual as like their previous album with like knocking the boots and whatnot. So yes, this is when a lot of things started coming to like full circle, and when a lot of like Dino's this is when like the premonitions really started to happen, because I'm picking up that there was a lot of sinister behaviors like going on, lurking around him. There were a lot of dark forces, evil energy and stuff that, and I'm also hearing that some of these evil energies and stuff will kind of follow him or haunt him, like voices in his head and everything, like voices of the devil and whatnot. They will say things like, oh, you need to off yourself, you need to, commit suicide, you need to just change a lot of things about yourself. No one's gonna like you, no one's gonna care about your career, like no one's gonna be here for you, just better off, deceased and whatnot. He had to fight off a lot of these dark energies and a lot of these voices and stuff in his head. So he did start going through a lot of these tough things that went on. Another thing that I'm going to ask about is, so we've pretty much gone through a lot of things like the whole premonition thing, car accident, and OJ Simpson's wife. Okay, so let's pretty much get down to the premonitions and when it comes to Dino's death. So when the group pretty much went on a hiatus because they felt like what they were doing at the time was not working, and everybody should just go their separate ways. So picking up that Shazam pretty much had more success because he had that thrust and that thrive that the record label was really needing at the time and that really wanted. Because I'm picking up he had that genuine flair, that genuine flair per se. I know I said genuine, but genuine flair. He had like a soft, seductive nature about himself, and it wasn't too strong and it wasn't too pushy, but it was like a good mix of it being in the middle. And when it came to Dino, Dino struggled with his solo career because he was influenced, because I'm hearing that he was influenced by a lot of different sounds and a lot of different styles, and he pretty much wanted to show off his inner self, because this is where the conflicts pretty much came about. Because y'all know that Dino was like the pretty boy of H Town, and the pretty boy image I felt like was more so of a curse and a gift at the same time, because it's like he was fine as hell, sexy and everything like that, and he could win over the ladies, but it's like nobody is expecting a soft and sexy man to talk about God and to preach about, man and wife and Adam and Eve and David and Solomon and heaven and hell and heaven on earth and things like that. People didn't want to hear it. And it's like they really became confused as to why somebody who's a sex symbol and someone who is so sexually enticing and whatnot is singing about God and singing about death and nature and all these different things, because he did have a song called, You're My Sunshine and Poon Juice and, just all this type of stuff and everything like that. And it's like people just didn't really want to connect with it or really hear it because they felt like his sound was conflicting with his look. So that's really what they were picking up on. And as you guys know, it really depressed Dino because at the time, he had to file bankruptcy. He was going broke. Nobody was buying his music. The royalties just weren't keeping up with his bills, because he was able to get some royalties and whatnot from the past music that he did make, because when they broke out of that deal, they were paid $1 million, and then they made money from like the second album. But you guys know that the second album did not do as well as their first album did, that had like knocking the boots on it and whatnot. So that's pretty much what that was. Another thing that I want to say is with Dino, this is when like a lot of demons and spirits were like really getting to him. And, he was really thinking about heaven and hell. And, this is when like the premonitions really started, because Dino knew that he couldn't really commit suicide, or he couldn't really like start suicidal thoughts, because he knew that it was a sin. He knew that if he took his own life, that he would pretty much be, you know, a sinner, and he would be deemed a sinner to God and would be allowed into heaven. But let's really tap into why he thought about heaven and stuff so much, and why he thought about death. And I'm going to use some cards this time to really see like what was going on. So okay, And one thing I can say about Dino is that he was a well put together man because you would think that somebody who looked as good as he did would be like a Future or like a Nick Cannon having babies and stuff everywhere. But it's like he only had one child, so we know, and the only one that was claimed, which is Kaja Rose. But when he died, he had a fiance who was pregnant, and so he probably, wanted to marry her and whatnot. But let me pick up some things about why he thought about death and why he thought about heaven and stuff so much. So, okay, ancestors of ancestors of ancestors of Dino Conner, please give us an accurate answer as to why he thought about death towards the late 90s, early 2000s, and having these premonitions and things about heaven. So you guys know that Dino had an old soul, and he could feel like so much fear and so much anger and so much retaliation dwelling up inside of him. But I am picking up that his soul was tired. Like he was very tired. He felt like he had reached like the end of his ropes and the end of his life, and he just felt like he had nothing really left, because what I'm picking up is like there was just a lot of secrets going on within the industry, because he knew that there was a lot of shady stuff going on, and he just couldn't understand like how he had such a magnificent gift that was so praised and that was so loved and that was so adored and whatnot, that people were just not picking it up or really involved in it or really liking it. And the phone calls had stopped because I'm picking up like phone rings weren't coming in as much as they were before, and things just started to take a detour and really downpour for him. And he just really like wasn't himself, because he couldn't understand how he went from being the lead singer in H Town and he was finally doing solo music, and it just wasn't quite selling because he was getting in his juices and he was really like flowing and really like getting in his groove and everything, and people were just not grooving with him. So yeah, he saw a lot of things in the industry. He saw a lot of shady things, because I'm picking up that people were like pulling their hand back when it came to his album, because he did have a fully recorded album, and when he died they released an album a year after he had died that had like all of their songs on it and a lot of Dino's solo stuff on there, because Dino was recording a solo album. But due to the powers that be, and I'm going to say this because there are some secrets coming up here, like in the record label, like a lot of people just did not want his solo stuff out. They didn't like it. They felt like it was crappy, it was shabby, it was too, loose. It wasn't strong felt or heartfelt or gut wrenching as like thin line between love and hate was, or like emotions, or like even with Natural Woman, it just didn't have that touch. And that's why the record label just didn't want to touch it or really like push it out there. And I'm picking up Dino had very strong conviction. He had very strong conviction about death in his life, and he just felt like things were just really matching up for him. But he also feels like his assignment was done, because I'm picking up like sealed deals, signed letters, signed, sealed, and delivered. Is that he felt like he had accomplished everything, and he had accomplished all of his dreams, and he just, had accomplished his, time here on earth. Because what I'm picking up was that he was, a little scared of the future. I'm picking up that he was very somber about it, because he just didn't know like what was to come with all these changes, how he could go from being this hot sex symbol and whatnot in H Town, and then things were changing where people just didn't want to hear it anymore, and people just didn't want no more from him. So I'm really picking up on that. So let's see. The day I die. So I'm picking up. Let's pick up what was the reason behind that? What was the cause? Why did he feel the need to make that song? Let's see. So I'm picking up conviction, but I'm also picking up freedom. He felt free when he sung that song. He felt like his thoughts were like written out on a 4-page letter. He felt like his career was over, his career was done, and he was just really ready to go and touch the sky, because he felt as though his love letter to God had been written. You know, he wanted to go the way that he wanted to go. He wanted to live the way that he wanted to live, and he did. And he pretty much, sold his wild oats. He did everything that he wanted to do, and he was just really, you know, in need of a recovery. I'm hearing like soul rejuvenation and restoration, be and to be at one with God and to be at peace with God, but to also to never feel pain and to never feel misery or death or any type of hurt. Because what I'm picking up is that Dino was a very hurt soul. He was a hurt person, because I'm picking up like the aftermath of a betrayal. So people in the industry, they really hurt him. They hurt his soul. They hurt his spirit, because a lot of these people made him feel like he didn't have nothing left and nothing left to offer and nothing left to give. Because I'm still picking up this fear card about pushing himself out there and making his name known, because of that fear of people not accepting him or embracing him, and him really being, brought out into the forefront and whatnot of what was supposed to get done, or what was supposed to, or what he was supposed to do. And he felt like his back was against the wall, like he was being caged in, like he was being locked in, and he just didn't have any type of freedom or nothing left. So the day I died was pretty much like his love letter to Christ, that he was ready to go, that his time was near, and he just wanted to go ahead and welcome that and accept that. And a lot of people say, life and death is in the power of the tongue, and what you speak out into existence can manifest into fruition. But I strongly believe that when a person is very spiritually in touch and spiritually in tune, because even with my ancestors, like, no matter where I go, no matter where I'm at in life, I will literally get a random message from a person that has a word for me or a message for me, and it completely resonates with what I'm going through in life. And I personally feel that God will do people like that. Well, God will send people, or God will send you a voicemail himself that lets you know that your days are numbered, your time is coming, and I'm ready for you to come home and be with me. And I believe that Dino, he received that, because I don't think that this is something that he did want to go to heaven, and he did, want to welcome God and whatnot, but he felt as though his assignment was done and that it was his time to go. But I feel like when a person gets premonitions, I feel like it's God preparing them to go, because when I tell y'all, when you listen to that song, The Day I Died by him, he has so much conviction and soul and seriousness in his voice. Like, he was really ready to go and he wanted to go. And so it also was hard for his brother, Shazam, to like hear the song. And then G.I. said that even to this day, he still will not listen to this song, because it was pretty much his goodbye letter. Because to those of you who know, 2 weeks after he recorded the song, he died in a car accident. So Dino was fully aware that his days were numbered and that his time had come and that he was ready. But let me go a little deeper into that and see, like, what did God say? Like, was his assignment really done? And, was death really meant for him? And did he speak that into existence? Okay. Okay. So what I'm picking up is that his time had come, because what I'm picking up is that he had a strong love for the Lord. That's what I'm picking up, because I pick up this really strong conviction of love for God, love for Christ, and love for the Lord. So he strongly, wholeheartedly loved God with all his might. And he believed that God, since God had carried him through his career, that he would carry him through in death. But I am really hearing that his soul was, he had a strong conviction, and he did get the call from God that his assignment was done, that it was time for him to go, because I keep hearing that his time had come, that it was time for him to leave this earth, because his assignment had been over with, because I'm getting like closure. So things are really starting to close up for him, and he even saw how his fame had died. And I know a lot of people say, well, just because your fame died doesn't mean you're going to die, or doesn't mean that it's your time to go. But he saw it for what it was, and he saw how like things were starting to like not pan out the way that he wanted it to, and you know, music just wasn't meshing well and whatever, and he felt like, it was time for a change, but he did get that conviction that it was just really that it was just really time for him to go, because I'm picking up that he had this impulse of, it's time for me to go. And his brother even said in the unsung that something just told him to go over and hug him and tell him that he loved him. So I believe that God did let both of them know that it was time for him to go. So Dino's assignment was done. A lot of people say, if he would have lived, he would have did this, and maybe if, things would have been different, or maybe he wouldn't have did that car scene. But I keep hearing conviction, that Dino was very convicted that it was time for him to go, that it was his time to die. And instead of him fighting it and trying to change the course, he would rather accept it as God's will, because he felt like it was God's will for him to go. So that's pretty much all for this medium. I hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to like, leave a comment in the comment section, and have a good day.